Hello, and welcome back to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where franchisors and field teams come to get sharper, more strategic, and more effective at driving franchisee performance. I'm Jennifer Brannon, Chief Growth Officer here at AC Inc. And today we're talking about something that I see all of the time in franchisees and in coaches and probably in everybody in the world, where we think being busy is the win. If we're busy, then we must be being productive. But in fact, busy can be a distraction. Having full calendars, long days, constant activity does not always translate into performance, results, goals, achieving your goals. So, we really want to be working with if we're talking here about our franchisees, and figuring out those people that are overwhelmed because they're busy, really what's going on, and motion does not always equal results. So I'm really excited today. I'm joined by Alex Gilleland from Home Run Franchises. And Alex, thank you for joining us. I know you work with franchisees for Home Run Franchising, so welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And this is a great topic as well. Everyone likes to be busy to an extent, but it really depends if your busy's equaling results or you're just trying to be busy to be busy.
Exactly. So, Alex, before we jump into the topic, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do in your role with Home Run Franchises?
Yeah, so my name is Alex Gilleland, and I'm the brand manager for Dryer Event Superheroes, and that's one of the brands at Home Run Franchises. Background-wise, I've always been in franchising. My start was in franchise development marketing. So I got to work on the supplier side for a good couple of years, really getting used to the advertising portion of it, figuring out how, the mindset around what brings someone to own a franchise. That was really good knowledge for me to learn for there. And then a couple of years ago, I jumped into the franchisor side first as a franchise marketing manager. So taking what I've learned from the supplier side to the franchisor side has been great. And in January of 2025, I hopped into the brand manager role for Dryer Event Superheroes, and I have been rolling ever since.
Nice. Congrats on that. Good for you. Awesome. Okay, so you've obviously had lots of experience working with people and franchisees. So when we hear that phrase, like I said at the top, busy isn't the win, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so the end goal, I think, for everyone is they don't want to be busy. They want to have something that's running and they're doing their portion of it and it's working well and everything's peachy. But especially when you're starting a business, that's not going to be the case. But when we say busy isn't the win, it depends what they're busy with. Are they the ones that are out in the field doing all the jobs, talking to all the customers? That's busy, but is that the goal of owning a business? The goal to own a business is to be overseeing it and to manage it, not to be in the weeds. Really, when someone says, man, I'm busy all the time, I don't know what else I can do, the first question is always going to be, what are you doing? Because a lot of times when we hear that, they're getting busy with things that they either need to delegate to someone else and move into more managing that person. A lot of them think that, that's what success looks like. Success for me, when someone says that, I want them to be much more focused on managing. And if they're busy with networking and getting out in their community and making those connections, that is a win. And that's good to be busy in those, but it's really what they're being busy with.
Yes. It's they really often, and I was a franchisee, you don't, Alex and I don't, for listeners, don't really know each other very well. And I was a franchisee for two different brands. And man, can we ever make ourselves think that we're doing what we should do and that we are busy and we've got a full calendar. But to your point about what is it? What does that really, really look like? And so, when you're working with franchisees right now, when you have those questions, or sorry, you have had that discussion around what are they doing, what are you seeing them do that maybe isn't as productive as they should be doing?
Yes. The biggest one I see is stepping into the actual operations of the business. Something that they can hire someone to do, and someone that, they don't have the skill set, let's say for dryer vent cleaning. The person that we want doing the dryer vent cleanings is someone that's had that experience before, has been in the HVAC world. That's what they're suited to. And if an owner, let's say we've had owners from all different walks of life, from video game developers to accountants, we don't want them in the field. That's not what they're suited to. We always say that franchisee time is the most important thing in any business. The way that we have our system set up is we have a lot of weekly and monthly meetings, and we've been in cases where they say, "Oh, I'm on a job. Yeah, I'm too busy for this meeting," or "Oh, I wasn't able to make this meeting with the marketing team or the marketing vendor." Those are things we want them to be busy with. I use BNI as a big example. When they say they're too busy for the BNI meeting, for me, that's part of their schedule. That's almost a non-negotiable for me. If you're too busy for networking and you're too busy in the weeds of the day-to-day operations, it's really hard to advance your business past where you are.
Yeah, that's so true. We're always harping saying you've got to work on your business, not in your business.
Yes.
And that's it. And we do things for franchisees as part of our service. One of the things is performance groups, and I think we've done performance groups
Yes.
with DVS, right? And with challenge that we have, and these are groups where we're teaching franchisees to actually really understand how to be a business owner and to work on their business. They need those skills, but man, can it ever be a challenge when we have those people who are owner operators who are like, "Oh, I can't because I'm on the truck today, or I'm in doing calls, or I've got to be working the front desk, or whatever it might be." And there's a difference, I think, between an emergency, or okay, my manager's out sick, I got to step in, and that this is actually part of my week. Those are two different things. Being a business owner, you have to drop everything at times to keep the business going, right? But when it's those business owners that are still working in the business doing these things, and that's the reason they're busy, that's when we really have a problem with that. So
Yes.
yeah, talk more, I think, maybe Alex, about how you tackle that with those business owners who are saying, I'm busy, but you really see it's because they're doing all these things in their business.
Yes. The biggest one's community marketing. We see that a lot, is whether it's phone calls or messages or leads coming in, or they're in on the van helping their technician. Those are all really important, but community marketing seems to be the one that gets left behind a lot of the times. The way I
Always.
describe it is you're planting a seed for community marketing. You can plant it now. You can plant it a year from now. It's going to take 6 months to see the results from the community marketing. So for them, we want these organic jobs. You're not paying for these jobs. They're coming in from your partners, from organic sources. Do you want those 6 months from now, or do you want them 2 years from now? Because at the rate that you're going, it's going to be 2 years if you don't schedule it. What we're big on is, are you scheduling time to do community marketing? Are you blocking it off in your calendar? A lot of times they're not. For BNI meetings, they're always going to be early in the morning, all of these networking groups. If they're not blocking that off, they're going to get scheduled. And then they're going to say, well, I have to go do this. I wasn't able to do my BNI this meeting, and it's my third miss in 6 months, and they're going to kick me out of the group now, and I have to start all over again. And we've seen that happen before. But for me, it's as long as they are planting that seed. What are you doing? How are you doing? What are you doing weekly to start growing it? Because we want you to get those as quick as possible. But it's going to take 6 months. So we can either start it now and we can enjoy it 6 months, or we can have this conversation again in 6 months and we see those results in a year.
Yeah. I think the thing is, as franchisees, as much as it might be okay when you get out doing your community marketing, a lot of times we don't want to do it. We want to be, let's just say we were a dryer vent technician, or in my case, my brands were all in supplemental education. I was in education. I wanted to talk to the parents. I wanted to hang with the kids. That's why I started the business. That's what I wanted to do. And I had to learn that lesson that, okay, you can want to do that all you want, but that's not going to grow your business. It's going to help with the personal relationships and stuff, but I had to learn, to your point, every Friday I did nothing but community marketing. Nothing.
Hmm.
And then, when I had to, I also needed to schedule my, like, working on the business, looking at my numbers and my metrics and things like that. I did that on a weekly basis, and then I looked at the month in a lagging way and really looked at those things. And you just have to schedule and make that time to do that. So I think really digging in, and I think let's talk a little bit about time management, because that's
Hmm.
another thing, right? Is people saying, "Oh, I'm so busy," but it's really a time management. So how do you find that with franchisees?
Yes, that's a consistent one, and
Okay.
and that's a problem that everyone's going to have. I've had that problem. I think everyone's going to have a problem of time management in some way or another. It all depends on how you're setting your week up. Are you block scheduling? Are you saying that these 2 days I'm only going to do community marketing, and I'm going to
Hmm.
give myself the other 3 days to do what I like to do? I like to be in the field, talk to the parents, but are you buying a business or are you buying a job? If you're
Right.
buying a job and you want to work it, you want to be on the field, that's great. But, there's a limit to that. Eventually you're going to need to get to the community marketing and the organic side of it. I'm big on, what does your week look like? Do you have a to-do
Mhm.
list as well? We always do when we do our weekly checks. It's three things. It's three SMART goals. What are you doing this week? Usually it's focused around community marketing.
Mhm.
I'm talking to 5 appliance repair partners, and I'm going to do this by Wednesday. Having that checklist and having those checks is how we're able to really help increase their productivity, especially on the community marketing side.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And understanding also, should they be doing these things? Are they good at doing these things? I think when it comes to time management, right? Like
Hmm.
looking at, and this was something that my coach said to me back in the day, why are you doing your bookkeeping? I was like, well, because I like to, and it's kind of fun to see that. And she was like, no, no, no. That's a good chunk of time every week that means you're not outgrowing your business. Pay someone. Your time is much more valuable doing these other things. And so
Hmm.
I had to learn that lesson. And I think the same goes for even time management, of spending time on things like figuring things out ourselves. Like we can waste a lot of time, and where somebody else who's better at it can come in and do things,
Yes.
and really get stuff off of our plate, so that we are much more balanced in what we're doing.
Mhm. I think
Okay, so
oh, sorry. I think the line's from Jeff Bezos, but it's focused on what makes your beer taste better, and anything else, outsource it. So anything related,
nice.
like, and this is why we have vendors, and this is why we have a franchise system,
Yep.
and that's why I always tell people, if you're trying to figure something out and you don't know how to do it, let us help you with it. If it's something with our system, our marketing, give it to us. Let us work on it. Let us get back to you and focus on your business. Because the more time someone takes to figure something out that someone already might have an answer to, is
Yeah.
time they could spend, cleaning their schedule up, getting out in the community, even helping their technician. But we don't want any of those holdups if possible.
Right. Right. Exactly. So if you've got someone that is saying, I'm working nonstop. We hear this a lot, right? I'm working 80 hours a week. How do you use metrics in your coaching to really potentially understand them, and what's going on with their business, and all of that kind of stuff?
Yes, we use a scorecard.
Okay.
So in the first couple of months, we call it our jumpstart period, or I think the typical term is the ramp period,
Yep.
for a business. We have a weekly scorecard that we check in and have weekly meetings with the cohort or the wave of franchisees. That's the best way, I think, and the best improvement we've seen is when we started using that, the productivity. A
Mhm.
lot of it's focused around, obviously, what are you doing every week, but also community marketing. Um, that's where we see the biggest improvement. No one likes to say, here's my scorecard. I did not do any community marketing this week. or I didn't make any new connections this week. And the more they have to stand up and talk about their scorecard, the less they want to have a zero on there.
Yeah.
So we've seen that help a lot in terms of metrics in the scorecard.
Right. So actually making them choose to, I've got to make sure that I have time in my schedule to do my community marketing or whatever it might be, or focus on whether it's community marketing or a big one that I know makes such a difference for brands that have, conversion rates, right? Like I had 50 leads and I converted 20 of them to clients. I should be converting 35 of those. I've got to intentionally focus on how am I improving those conversion rates. And a good scorecard can show you that. And then that activity, right? To your point, that activity of what are we doing to improve ourselves, whether it's a staff member that we're training or ourselves following a script, brushing out, whatever it might be. But I love that in using that your coaching sessions of that accountability of I don't want
It's
to have a
key.
zero.
Yes, accountability is key. It's the reason we like that structure because they're accountable for their own actions. And we use that scorecard to then identify, for example, topics of discussion for the group and building their weekly to-dos. That's why a lot of it's focused around that community marketing, especially conversion rates as well, because then we can say, okay, we did not hit our targets this week. Let's talk about it. Let's make our weekly checks and our weekly tasks about those topics. Then they have to come to the next meeting and say, hey, I completed all of these, or they can say, hey, I'm not on track. Well, let's bring it back down to the discussion because we're going to see this issue come. It's a really good leading indicator on how to fix a lot of that, the potential problems that come out in the first 4 months. When they see, I'm already falling behind on this, I'm not going to hit this by the end of our goal.
Yeah.
I need to work on it more and much quicker than I was planning
Yeah.
on it.
And I'm sure you're when you question them as in like what happened, right? We've got to examine why didn't I meet my goal? Why didn't I get there? What happened? What did I allow to get in the way of not doing this activity or not hitting my goal or whatever it might be? So I think, using as a coach, maybe you can speak to that a little bit of how you use those effective questions to dig deep to help that franchisee understand their why, and then looking ahead to the next week of, okay, I'm not going to allow that same thing that happened last week to happen next week because I want to hit my goals. How do you use those open-ended questions?
Yeah, so the good thing is with the scorecard, we have about 11 metrics we track weekly.
Okay.
And all of them, well, it's based on learning. Every wave that comes through, we find new things that franchisees maybe need to do better on, weren't aware of, whatever it is. It's a living document, really. But we know that for each of those 11 metrics, if something's not being followed or they're off track, some process is not happening. So then we can attack it. Let's say a big one for us is reviews. If they're not hitting their review goal and we're saying, okay, let's say franchisee number one, why do you think you didn't hit this? It's going to be, the technician maybe had to do the job quicker. They had to do too many jobs. That's an SOP problem. You're not following our standard operating procedure. So it allows us to really figure out the root of them. But the most important thing is they tell us what they think first. I think that's a really important part is that we're not consulting them. We're not saying, hey, you don't have enough reviews. You need to do this. Something's not happening. But getting them to explain to us their reasoning behind it. But the good thing is we always know what they can do to improve on it. If something's not being followed, if they're not getting enough per sale, it all relates back to the processes of the franchise. So getting them to understand you're not hitting this because something in this process is not being followed has really helped correct a lot of those early mistakes that we've seen.
I think that's right. I think what we're really talking about here is outcome-based coaching, right? Where it's really coaching that is designed to drive activity and performance, basically. How do you differentiate that between coaching that maybe, if you've been in other coaching roles that haven't been so outcome-based coaching and are, because I think a lot of times we think, oh, a coach is there to support us, right? So what's the difference between supportive coaching and maybe outcome-based coaching?
Yeah, it's a fine line because a lot of it comes in when do you turn into a cheerleader and when do you turn to the numbers. The most important thing is that you know when to kind of turn on each nozzle. When are they looking for support? When are they looking for someone to know they have their back? And when do they need to have a hard look at the numbers?
Yeah.
Some of that comes down is just to kind of pick up on the signs as the conversation goes on. Well, let's use our average sale, for example. That's always going to be a numbers decision, but are they coming at it like they're exhausted? They can't get their technician to get to the level they need. Do they need a hard look at the numbers, or do they need someone supporting them saying that I'm invested in your outcome and
Right.
here's what we can do to help you with that one? Not, hey, you need to get it to here and we know it's not here. It's a mix. You have to kind of dance around to each one, because if you do too much of the cheerleading, or let's say too much of the outcome-based coaching, it's going to be a little bit of a negative reaction because you're not going to be really tailoring what they need, or tailoring what you have to what they need.
Okay, so Alex, if busy isn't the win, then what is the win? So, like when you think about franchisees who is actually winning, that you would say, you know what, that person, they've kind of got it figured out. What are those factors that you would attribute to kind of winning, if that's what the goal is?
Yeah, I'm going to point to three, and three of my favorite ones. The first is, are they hitting weekly targets? If we have these goals, are they hitting them? Are they on track, or are they off track? The next one's delegation for me. Are the people that are the best at what they can do, are they in the right seats? If the owner's not good at community marketing, who's going to do that for them? Because we want to make sure, it's so important that we want to make sure that whoever's in that seat's good. The same thing with the technician. Is the person doing the jobs the right person for that one? Helping owners understand why they might or might not be good at something is really important. We always tell them, fire yourself from the business. Don't worry about doing the work. Fire yourself. Get someone in that seat that really can handle it. And the last one's intentional action. We use SMART goals. Everything is a SMART goal for us. Everything from our yearly goals to quarterly goals to our weekly tasks as well, because that's intentional. If I tell someone I'm going to go see 5 people this week and talk about my business, that doesn't really mean anything. You could talk to 5 people on the street about it and not get into it. But if I say I'm going to talk to 5 potential referral partners by Wednesday, or 5 appliance repair people by Wednesday, that's intentional and something that they really know that, hey, I don't know what to do this week. I'm getting too busy. What's something I can do and knock out? Boom, it's right there. It's easy, it's digestible, and it's something they can do.
Mm-hmm. Those are great. I think that's spot on, for sure. Now we've been talking, excuse me, we've been talking about franchisees, but I know we all can fall into this busyness trap, and coaches can fall into it too. So for yourself, and we there's a lot of brands out there. I always am hearing, talking to franchisors, saying, we have our field coach certification program, our accelerator. Did you take that, Alex? Did you?
I did, with
Yeah,
Stephanie. It was awesome. I loved it.
did you? Okay, amazing. That's the feedback that we get from everyone, that the field coach certification is just amazing. I think 100%, because we survey people. I think something like 100% of people said it was totally worth it. But this actually backs up my point, because we will hear from a lot of franchisors who say, oh, our coaches can't take that because it's twice a week for roughly 5 months-ish, 90-minute sessions twice a week with a cohort of around 10 people to go through the whole program and then to become certified. So they'll say, our coaches, oh no, they're just way too busy. They can't possibly take a program like that, which to me is it boggles my mind, because this is the thing that is going to, maybe they're just not bought into it, but is going to really help level up these coaches, so that they are going to be more effective and drive an ROI on themselves and what they're doing with the franchisees. So if we kind of back that up a little bit, how as a coach do you stay disciplined to focus on outcomes and not get to like doing the busy work that can make us look like we've got full calendars and we just can't possibly take an extra course or things like that?
Yeah, the first one's going to be scheduling. It's the same thing I would tell a franchisee. Do you have time in your schedule? Are you making time in your schedule? We don't want an hour meeting every hour for 6 hours of the day, every single day, every week. That's not time efficient for anyone. We want to make sure that you have time to grow and develop, just like a franchisee needs to as well. The other one's going to be really, what does the agenda look like? Are you kind of flying off the handle with every meeting, or are you having a structured agenda that's going to go through each point and what you want to cover? We've seen a lot of big efficiency gains when we started implementing much more structure into our meetings. So it's less about what are we going to cover, more we know what we're going to cover. Here are the big topics we need to talk about with it, and what outcome are we trying to get today? What do you want to cover? What are we trying to gain from this meeting? We're able to shorten times. I like 30-minute meetings, no longer than 90 minutes. We don't want someone to go for 4 hours for a big review. They're going to lose interest in it, and that's going to take too much time off of a coach's schedule as well. Other than that one, it's really just making sure that everyone's on the same page with a lot of it. Do you have recurring meetings with the team, for example? Can the team help take some of that pressure off of you? If there's franchisees that need help, are you talking about it with the team versus having to have a longer meeting with the franchisee? Are you going to come with solutions or just more questions for them? Because then that's going to be in another meeting down the line, and another one down the line. And then, yes, you're not going to have time for anything at that point if you're having 4 hours to cover something that could be covered in 30 minutes.
No, excellent. And I think that there is something to be said also for, it is a franchisor's responsibility. When I say franchisor, I mean, leadership or founder franchisor, whoever it might be. And you can maybe attest to this, to really understand and reverse engineer back the hourly expectations of their coaches, because some of those brands that I talk to that say, oh, my coach couldn't possibly come and do a course, probably is because their number of franchisees they're supporting is probably way, way, way too high. And if that's the case, then they are not being an effective field coach as they could be if it was within that kind of benchmark. Which we typically at AC Inc., there's all kinds of conditions around this, I will say, but just for anybody who's listening who's interested, we say one coach to, on average, between 20 to 30 franchisees.
Yes.
Is really the average. Now, of course, going and doing field visits, you got to reduce that number if that's a big part of your model, right? If you are, some restaurants and things, that's less, but that's pretty much kind of the benchmark. I know some brands that are 15 because they are very, very heavy. One is a restoration brand. They're really, really heavy with the coaches and kind of the operational support in addition to the coaching. But at 15, they have the time to do it. And then I think it's also watch everything else that you're throwing on your coach's plate. This project here, this committee here, this help us organize the conference, because all of that weighs down your coaches, and then really does, because who's going to suffer? They've got deadlines. The committee's got deadlines. The project's got deadlines. The thing that's going to suffer the most probably is going to be their time with the franchisees, which is not what we want to do. So I think that's really important to do that reverse engineering of actual hours, because it's just math. And I'm sure I've said this on other podcasts. It's really just math. You should know where all of the time your coaches are spending, where it's going. And you build it in. You build on the admin time and the personal time and the holiday and the vacation. It's an easy exercise to do, but far too many people, I think, don't do it and just randomly say, oh, our coaches are going to have 50 franchisees without thoroughly thinking through what that is going to look like. And then people get neglected or not supported as they should by their coaches. So, okay, so let me ask you, Alex, we're winding down. So for any franchisors that are listening, we'd like at this podcast, we're all about action equals growth. It's one of our core values. We want people to find nuggets on, when they're listening to the podcast, things that they can do and go into their brand. What are some of the things that a brand could do tomorrow that they could start implementing or doing to help their coaches and help their franchisees not just be busy?
Yeah. The first one for me, it's a scorecard, 100%. If you're not using one, I would start. That is where you can have franchisees really start to interpret that data themselves. We never want to be in a situation where we ask a franchisee, for example, what's your average sale? What's your revenue look like? And they can't tell you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know has happened before. And that's why we have a scorecard, because it's important that they know everything that we know in that case. The next one is just find your key performance indicators and know what process or what the franchisee does and how that affects those. Because that is how you can tell if someone's going to start lagging behind. If, for example, the reviews start to slow down, you can help them course correct that much quicker than having to play reactive when it becomes a major problem for there. And I think the last one for me is, I got two more, but make sure that franchisees and coaches know what winning looks like. And a lot of that's done through the scorecard and the KPIs. If they're hitting all their targets and we see a bunch of green on their scorecards, they are doing everything they can. They are hitting those goals, and then it's more of a conversation of where do you want to grow from here? You're hitting what we want. How do we get you from here to, from point A to point B from that point? Much more of a growth conversation than a consultant conversation for, how do you get to your original goals? And I think the last one for me is standardize a lot of the communication with the franchisees. Are you checking in weekly? Do you have a scheduled meeting with them at least once a month? A lot of those things sometimes will fall to the wayside. And that's how a lot of the pressure builds up. Having that standard communication, it's a pressure valve for a lot of the coaches. And if they have too many franchisees or they're trying to find the number of franchisees, having standard communication is really going to level up a lot of their performances.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great little nuggets, tidbits there. I 100% agree. So you franchisors out there, take what Alex has said. And so I really, really love this conversation. It was such a good conversation. And I think it's, the message is very clear that while activity can feel productive, it's really the outcomes that matter. And we need to be focused on the outcomes and making sure that the activity is producing those outcomes. So for listeners out there, if you are currently building your coaching team, your coaching structure, you want to learn how to create a scorecard for yourself. If you are wanting to learn about our field coach certification program and really level up your coaching skills or your coach's skills, then go to our website, fieldcoachexperts.com. I am happy to have an intro call with anyone and talk more about your brand and how AC Inc. can help. So thank you, Alex, again for being our guest. Really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to the Field Coach Experts podcast. We will see you next week.